Nehawu is coming out and defending a group of 45 Eastern Cape health workers who it's understood to have earned a staggering 67 million rand in salaries in the past 2 years while they were doing nothing really. They were staying at home, is the suggestion. They're accused of refusing to take up positions at other government hospitals. However, there is an issue around the Eastern Cape Health Department here. It follows the closure of the Osmond TB Hospital back in 2021 due to a decline in patient admissions. I actually remember that story, most of it blamed on COVID-19. So let's try and get a sense of where we are on this, what part of the story is true, and try and take it forward and shed some light. National Education, Health and Allied Workers Provincial Secretary, it's Mlu Ncapayi joining us this morning from Nehawu. Mlu, good morning to you. Appreciate your time. We're going to get to the money situation in a moment, but I understand the Eastern Cape Health Department have gone quiet. They're not even talking about this story. Is that correct? Good morning.
Good morning, Gareth. Good morning to the viewers at home. Our understanding of the situation is that, yes, indeed, the department had a plan to repurpose the hospital from the initial function of being a TB hospital to a psychiatric hospital. This is where everything then started to be a problem for us, because if you are doing that process, we call it a restructuring, even if you use a different terminology. And if you are doing a restructuring, there are certain processes and procedures that must be followed. For example, you must consult workers through their unions. But the department did not do that process. Instead, they just removed workers. They instructed workers to go and report somewhere in the surrounding hospitals around the Nelson Mandela region, which we opposed, and we took the department to the Public Health Bargaining Chamber, where we got an award against the unlawful removal of workers without being consulted.
So help me then understand that I'm seeing in the report that these workers, these 45 workers, I believe they're fairly high up, senior staff members, perhaps even management as well. The words being used is that they refuse to work at other government hospitals. You're talking of a retrenchment, and they refuse to work at other hospitals as well. So why were they kept on the payroll if they refuse to work elsewhere?
No, it is not true that they are refusing to work elsewhere. Those are professionals that belong to different health professional bodies that are required, in fact, to practice on a regular basis. So there's no way that they can refuse to work, because they have to make sure that they meet the requirements and the standards of the health professional bodies that they belong to. But what is the problem is the department not consulting them in terms of saying, this is a process that we are going to follow, and these are the institutions that are available for you to choose. And then we talk about the issue now of traveling between those institutions and everything, because these workers themselves belong to families. So if you are removing them from one institution to the next, it means we must also cater for their families so that you don't disrupt the family life. That is where we are. So it is not true that those workers are refusing to work. They are even interested, even themselves continue to tell us that they don't want to be redundant. That's why at the current moment we had an understanding with the department that there are certain services that must still be rendered in that particular institution until the process of restructuring is done in a proper manner. As you understand that the department who are busy now with the organogram review process, which is at the tail end. Once that process is done, and we are going to start the process of placement of person to post matching, and those workers are going to be distributed in other areas within the Nelson Mandela region.
So then confirm for me, if it is true to your knowledge, if 67 million rands worth of salaries were paid to 45 staff members over 2 years, were they being paid while they weren't working? Mr. Ncapayi, is that true? Is that correct?
From our understanding, we won't know how much the department has spent, but it was a concern for us, because there are also contracts in terms of other services that are procured from service providers, for example. We want to know what is really happening. And if something like this is happening, it would take us back now when the time of the COVID arrived, when the Nelson Mandela region was declared a hotspot. It was declared as a hotspot because of the many challenges that are there in terms of the capacity of the management to manage that region in terms of health institutions. So you can never look at this outside of that.
Well, I think in this case, I do agree with you. It is a hot spot and it hasn't been handled well by Eastern Cape Health. We are chasing them down. But do you know if these staff members were paid while sitting at home? I think that's the key question for South Africa this morning. I understand there's legacy issues, but in the last 2 years, was 67 million rand paid out to 45 staff members?
To understand is that those workers are contracted by the department as they are permanently employed, and if now the department decides to change their workplaces in terms of saying we're closing or we're repurposing this particular hospital, you must go to the next hospital, the department must consult those workers so that they understand exactly what is their situation. It is unlawful to change now the conditions of workers without consulting them.
Yeah, but also ethically and morally, Mr. Ncapayi, you also can't expect people who work in the health profession to be getting salaries of 61,000 rand a month. I've done the maths. 61,000 rand a month for 2 years. They're sitting at home. They know they aren't working and they're not doing anything about it. It must be a nice, cushy job to have. Everyone would love. They get lots of money, not do anything.
You understand that the responsibility of the employer is to provide the workers with employment. And if you are changing the workplace, you must also provide conditions for those workers to go and work in that new workplace. The department has not done that. The responsibility here is with the management of the department, not the workers, because workers have not employed themselves and themselves are very worried about being redundant at some point because they are registered with the health bodies that require them to practice.
I do take your point for the moment. Mlu Ncapayi, thank you for making time this morning. It is a bigger issue with the Eastern Cape Health Department. We know that we're going to keep following up as well. That's the views then of Nehawu's Provincial Secretary, Mr. Mlu Ncapayi. Thank you, sir, for your time this morning.